My dad was from Georgia. My mother, a native of Fort Pierce, Florida. I was educated, and oddly enough, I worked and managed Applebee's restaurants.
My parents is from Georgia, and I relocated after my parents died. I came to live in Palm Beach County with my auntie, and then I moved to Broward County. I think I was around 11.
My father's from Vade, Georgia. My mother was from a little small Swain, Georgia, somewhere in that area. We've been in Pompano since 1963, 62. We originated from Cleveland, Ohio.
I'm from a place called Lyons, Georgia. I was born there. My parents are too. My mother came here in the 60s, late 60s, and brought all of her children here. And she was self-employed, and she worked very hard. So she made sure that we had a good life, all of us.
Upon visiting my parents, I saw that they had aged. I resigned and from Applebee's, and I moved back to Pompano in 2001 to take care of my parents. I live in the home I grew up in, and own the business that my dad started and my mom started back in 1967.
Cooking for people, being a neighbor, people in general that knew how you cook and how your food tastes, and they would come and ask you to cook the food for them. Cooking for people in the community. And then I went into catering. And then when I left catering, I went into flowers. It was just something I liked doing, and I just did a lot of weddings and funerals and that type of thing.
We've been in Pompano since 1963, 62. We originated from Cleveland, Ohio. We came here because of necessity. My mother was ill, her family was here, and so we eventually followed my mother to Florida. And also, over the years, we had visits from aunts. I had Aunt General here and Uncle Felton here. Well, we came here, I wound up going to Sanders Park Elementary. Because of my family circumstances, we were split up. I wound up staying with my Aunt Frankie, my great Aunt Frankie, and my brother wound up staying with my Uncle Felton. We found the experience a little different because Cleveland's education and language was a little different from South Florida. As you may or may not know, we called sodas that they call now pops up north, and here they call them sodas, and so there's a disconnect in language when we originally got here, and folks wondered what we were talking about.
My mother came here in the 60s, late 60s, and brought all of her children here. And she was self-employed, and she worked very hard. So she made sure that we had a good life, all of us. I went to elementary school here, kindergarten, elementary, and high school. I graduated from Ely High School. And then I later went on to become a police officer. I started working for the city of Pompano in 1973. While all this time now, I was working at the police department, so I opened up a nail salon. So I wanted to hire black girls, young girls.
I grew up in Pompano. I'm a native Floridian. Pompano has evolved. It's more diverse, and in my opinion, it's a view of America, and it's for the good. Where we're at now, this area used to be Hammerville Road, which is now MLK Boulevard, used to be a rock road. I was young. It was about, during that time, I was probably 7 or 8 or 9. I would ride up this way with my dad. I was always with my dad, and we would come downtown, which is what this area was designated as, downtown Pompano. I'm now 61, so I've seen a lot of changes since I've been running a shop, running a family business from 2001 to current. So there's been a lot of changes and positive changes, good changes.
Thing is different than it was. It has grown quite a lot. At that time, we didn't have all the highways, and you just had Dixie Highway more or less, and maybe Federal Highway, but everything else has grown up around it now. Everybody called me Mama. White, black, Puerto Rican, any nationality, they called me Mama. Everybody respected me, and everybody, it was I don't know about you, but most of the people hugged and kissed. They hugged and kissed. Whether we was white, they were white or no, they always hugged and kissed you and got some positive to say about you, And that carry you on, and that was the strength of everything. The young people to know how to dress and know how to talk and know what to expect out of coming to church and being a church member. You sort of grope them, catch them by the waist and carry them on. Even the boys, you taught them how to do in church and what to do, how to be like in church. And you can't get young people in church and sit them aside and say, honey, you should dress like this, or you should dress like that. You can't do that anymore. They're not having it. They won't have that now.
In Cleveland, it was always cold. We did enjoy the icicles. We had a lot more freedom. We used to jump off roofs. We were kids. We were adventurous. Going to people's yards, getting cherries, and there really were cherries in Cleveland. But when we came to South Florida, because of the difference in the environment, we wound up finding out about the farm life. Farm life was not really an easy life, but it was an adventurous life. We picked beans, bell peppers. Oftentimes, those are sometimes the things that help pay bills. We didn't make a lot of money because we weren't that fast, but at least we learned to do that. It's very different. It brought the family together. There was always love, but there was a common goal that we had to do it in order sometimes to eat. Sometimes it just kept us busy and out of trouble. Coming to South Florida was different. Eventually, we found other things to do. We kind of grew up. I started playing basketball. My brother started running track. We got more involved in the integral part of Blanche Ely High School, which was in itself turned out to be a very good thing. We got a good foundation from that. Well, it's interesting. My parents, even in Cleveland, they would always send us to church. Sometimes they wouldn't go. But we always went to church, and then my Aunt Frankie, she took us, we started going to Mount Calvary Baptist Church. And oftentimes as kids, you really don't get the dynamics of the spiritual or the faith experience until you're in trouble or until there's a great need. And my great need came when I went to Bethune-Cookman College. I had a C average, and I didn't think that I was going to be able to accomplish or get through the college life. I remember laying in bed one night and said, Lord, if you let me get through this, help me. I'll spend at least 3 years of my life trying to give back to others. Well, God must have heard me because I left Bethune-Cookman with a 3.67. And but for some reason, he didn't hit the 3 years. It seems like for the rest of my life, I've been participating in serving others.
What has changed, I think, is the improvement of the community. I like the fact that we're upgrading everything and bringing in the young people. I was president of the NAACP also for North Broward County for a number of years. I had a good team. Even Ed Phillips was my political chairperson. Church was a place where everybody gathered and where we socialized and everything. So the church was one of the most important places. That's where our parents went and the family mostly went. And our parents mostly encouraged us to go to Bible study and everything. So that was a good foundation for my family.
Doing to others as you would have them doing to you, treating people fairly, honesty, and just being your best and doing your best. I'm a Christian, and we practice Christianity and attending church. my mantra, our mantra as a family, uh, to treat people the way you want to be treated. I was brought up to believe that God help those who help themselves. So I think community involvement, uh, communicating to the community at large, and accessibility. There are people that I know, a few people that need services that the city does provide, and they're unaware of the services that the city provide that they need.
Well, for one thing, it wouldn't be a lot of these tall buildings every which way, these buildings every which way you came. This one right there on that line look like it's gonna fall right over on the road. Look like it's gonna fall right over. That thing right down there is gonna fall right over the road. And I don't think we would have so many homeless people on the road, you know what I'm saying? Because people will be more acceptable at to what is going on. Say like me, if I saw somebody hungry, I would feed them. You wouldn't have all of this going on like it is, like, you know? I don't think so. Maybe you would, but I don't think so.
Well, what I hope for Pompano in the future is the promise of America, and that is the spirit of inclusion. And oftentimes it's interpreted differently by an awful lot of people in terms of what inclusion means. Sometimes we have selective amnesia as to what that means. And there are people like me, based on how I grew up, who understand that in order to have inclusion, you have to be able to talk to folks to be included. You can't swing an axe from a distance. Sometimes you have to use the act of language, the act of purpose, the act of intelligence, and not necessarily anger. I found that works better. What I like to see for my family is that we somehow have and will be a part of shaping how things are to come in this city. When I talk about the spirit of inclusion, I talk about quality education, quality job opportunities, because it is a travesty to have so many buildings and so much development going in the area, and relatively few folks who live here have an opportunity to participate. Those are the kind of things that stand out to me, and because I know better, I participate to see if I can make it better.
I do a lot of seniors' hair at my beauty salon, and they all come to me for answers because they think that I have the answer to everything, but I don't. But I try to find out, and I'm not afraid to ask. So I've been going before the commission here in Pompano asking for that, and I think it's gonna come to pass. So I'm praying and hoping that it will, because I'm 68, so before I die, I want the seniors, the real poor ones, to have a nice place to live, because a lot of them gave up their homes for their children who were in trouble and lost them. And, you know, like bonding them out of jail and so on and so forth, and took advantage of them. And a lot of my seniors are living with their children, and they don't want that. They want their own house. I want, and I've been, you know, asking for senior housing, affordable senior housing, whereas the seniors who are above 60 and up, who incomes are only $700. So what I've been fighting for, and if you notice the area, it's improved because it's brought in subsidized housing. But the 55 and above here in Pompano would take anybody, but the people that I serve and the people who come to me to complain are seniors who are above 55, way above 55. The ones who Social Security check is only $700. So I've been trying to get the city to actually build that kind of housing where they can afford it, 62 and above. So the Housing Authority now, I think, is going to do that.